Ladies and gentlemen, from the Microsoft Theater here in downtown Los Angeles, brought to you by Shawn Porter Promotions.
Man.
Live from Los Angeles.
No, Jimmy's not done.
Still going. Goes on for a bit there.
Welcome to the Welterweight Podcast. Another Motivational Monday episode. Of course, we got Carson, Merk right here. And the podcast has a special guest for you today. Right here, my man, Spencer Robinson, Cleveland's own.
Yes.
It's no secret my dad has never been on this podcast. He's never even done a call in.
Yeah, he's a big money guy.
I think at
we don't
one
have the funds yet to afford him.
Exactly. At one point, I know we had Malik on, and I think my dad was in the background. You could hear some stuff, in the background. But for the most part, my dad has not been on this podcast for personal reason. And I just explained it to him actually, and he may come in and get on the podcast. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I told him, your value is way more than what's going to be. Now's not the time for you. I told my dad that what you have to bring to my podcast, I need 1 million followers. I need 1 million people watching it. And I said, and even if the number's not 1 million, I said I needed to be substantial enough for that when you come on my podcast, you're going to have such a profound effect on the world. People are going to start to really see and understand who you are, what you've been through, your story. Yeah. Because my dad's story, and he said, well, my story's going in the book. Dad, I don't want you to come on and tell a story. You know what I mean? Yeah, put your story in your book. Yeah. But Spence happens to be in town, just kind of popped in. And we always get into this thing where we just are talking, and we go from 0 to 10 really quickly on some intimate stuff, on some you remember this type stuff. I can't believe you this type stuff. I mean, all around, and the common denominator is my dad. Yes, clearly,
always.
But somehow, some way, between you and I, our connection to my dad is like very similar, to say the least.
Definitely.
And so it's not too many people that I can speak to that'll have an understanding of my dad and what that conversation really, what I got out of it, what he got out of it, so on and so forth. And somehow, some way, this man is on the outside of the ring and he's looking at it and he's thinking to myself, yeah, I've been there before, young Porter. Just hang in there. Right. I've been there before, young Porter. You're doing what you need to do. Yes. And I felt it would be a really good situation to have you on my podcast.
Well, thank you.
Today, tell some stories. We're going to talk a little bit about Cleveland. Okay. And really try to give people a glimpse of where you and my dad came from, and really why it's so relevant to me in my life, even though I didn't come from the exact same streets that y'all came from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With that being said, you know my dad how long?
Well, we met when I was about 12, so exactly 40 years.
He didn't like hearing that the other day.
He wanted to push it back to 14, which is to me, okay, 38, 40. I mean, what's the deal? You know what I mean? Same thing. Same thing. So, yeah.
But I don't think he really realized that it's been that long that y'all have known each other. And there's not too many people in my dad's life.
I'm not sure your dad still admits that he's 40 himself.
Which is why,
What am I, 38 years old now? There's no way it's been that long.
He's trapped in time.
Yeah. So, even from that standpoint, I mean, you've seen my dad. You've seen a lot of people come and go. You've probably seen this many people come and this many people go in my dad's life. Yeah, where my dad was just like, I'm not having it. Now's not the time. I don't need to deal with you, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Your dad was a different guy as a kid. He was just different than all the other kids, and he already had established that difference. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So I used to hang with your dad, and everybody, when I got back and your dad wouldn't be with me, they'd be like, yo, why you hanging around this guy? Yeah. Because he had an edge, and he took to me. It wasn't like he approached me because he liked my sister. That was it. My sister Sherry, he liked my sister. He's like, you Sherry Robinson's sister, brother? I said, yeah. He says, man, can you tell her, something like that? And then we started talking, and he was really into college football. We both were at the time, Herschel Walker was at Georgia, and we talked, so we had some things in common.
How far apart in age are you two? You and Kenny?
I think he's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Maybe not quite 3.
Just about there.
Yeah, something like that. 2.5 or 3 years, something like that. Yeah. But that was it, man. We met up, and we stayed together for a long time, until adulthood, like young adulthood. Mm-hmm. Once you guys were born, I remember when both you guys were born. Just the whole story, bro. And it just seems like a lifetime ago, because now you're an adult, you have kids.
We're here to tell the stories.
Yes, sir.
So go ahead and tell them.
Well, I remember one story distinctly with you is you were a baby, you were an infant, and you were sitting in a baby carrier, and it was my graduation day from high school, and your dad has this way of capturing the moment. So he tells me, he says, yo, I'm going to your graduation. Me being a young kid, to me, it's like, whatever, dude, you go.
Yeah.
But he was on it, and it was like, for me to see him really be emotional about something, but in a guy kind of way, it was like, I was weird about it, but I did what he told me to do. That's kind of how our relationship was. If he told me to do something, I did it. So he's like, pick me up. So I go to pick him up. So I get there, and Shawn's sitting in the baby carrier, and he's all dressed, but he couldn't find one shoe. So he starts running through the house. He's looking at his shoes. Shawn starts crying, and then he starts crying.
What?
Yeah, because he was
kind of flustered.
Yeah, keep going, because
because he was really trying, because he's not he's as warm and fuzzy as an alley red. You know what I mean? He's not the kind of guy to show anything. So the one day he decides to show something, he can't one shoe, right?
Yeah.
So he projected out on everybody at the house.
Yeah.
Then Shawn was crying. Then that got him.
Yeah.
He's like, why you always crying right now? Go, you crying, man. I'm coming back. Right? So like this. And then he didn't get to go. And so that was kind of like, and that was when you guys lived on 132nd.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a story with him. And it was weird, because like after that day, we didn't even talk about it again.
So
definitely for the best, because if you had brought that up, there was gonna be words.
Right.
I gotta bring the dad that everybody else knows. Nobody knows that my dad cries. So we gotta bring him back.
Man.
We gotta bring the man that everybody else knows back into the room.
But it's not the same cry. It's not a movie cry.
No, it's not. But everybody's like, yo, why is he crying? It's just a graduation. But that's where I'm going with this. People don't really understand. Like, my dad's not a very open person. Even at whatever age he is now, and me seeing some changes in him, I always know when old Kenny is in the room, and when new Kenny is in the room. New Kenny is open Kenny. New Kenny is going to, entertain a conversation with some.
Kenny.
Yeah, Poppy is what he likes for our kids to call him.
Okay.
When Poppy's in the room, Poppy does like to be fun and entertain whoever's in the room, and I'll meet you and I'll shake hands and stuff like that. But my dad really growing up, from you tell from your perspective, my dad wasn't messing with nobody.
Okay. So I hadn't seen your dad for 10 years. I was with your dad. He just came and picked me up one day, or we met up and I was with him. We were in Akron. And it was right around the time when you guys were transitioning here. Mm-hmm. And we went and got Nathan from school, or we encountered Nathan. Mm-hmm. So we went to the barbershop. At the barbershop, Nathan's like, Dad, come here. Like, away from me. Mm-hmm. He's like, Dad.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, Dad, who is this guy?
Right.
And Kenny's like, oh, that's. Kenny's like, why you asking me? He's like, Dad, I've never seen you with anybody. So I just had to make sure everything was all good. Mm-hmm. Like, so yeah, Kenny's not going to allow anybody to get him off his program. That's the one thing that he transferred to me. If we shared anything, because it was adversarial but it was almost like brothers.
Your friendship and your relationship with
Man, boy, listen. Tough love is just an understatement.
Yeah.
However, he gave to me and transferred to me about making a program, sticking to it. So like your dad dressed different than everybody. He got his own. He had his own house. We were all living with our moms, and so it was, he had his own place. He had his own job. He had his own car, and everybody else didn't have that at that age because he already had a program worked out for himself. And so it was easy for me to look at him and just emulate that. Like, yo, I got my program. I'm in.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Euclid Senior High School.
Yeah.
Out in Cleveland, Ohio.
Play running back.
Yeah, I mean,
ran track.
When it came time for 9th grade football and we tried out and 2-a-days, and I just remember doing something and some lineman fell on me. And I was good.
Yeah.
They came to school the next day. They're like, you coming to practice? I said, no, I'm good. They said, why? I said, I quit. I said, why? I said, dude. Ain't no dude wearing 300 pounds falling on top of me. And that was it. I was done with football. But yeah, Euclid is big sports school. Still to this day.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
You went to school with, did you go to school with Rob?
Yeah.
Robert Smith?
I did. His brother was in my homeroom. His brother, may rest in peace. He was in my homeroom. Because you know how that works out. You're in a guy's homeroom from like 7th grade.
Yeah.
So his brother was in my homeroom from like 7th grade. And I knew of Rob, but I didn't know, like, because Rob's like one of those guys too. Like Rob had a program worked out for himself at 9 years old. Rob was nationally ranked in like track books, and he knew who was the fastest in the country in his age group at like 9. Yeah. Yeah. So he was already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Robert Smith, former Ohio State, Minnesota Vikings running back, and highly underrated in my humblest of opinions.
I saw him on the back end, and I was like, he's okay. Then when you find wind of him at OSU,
early years, he was a monster.
Yeah. The reason why I speak of Euclid, I speak of Rob Smith. I know coming from Cleveland, anybody who knows of Cleveland, I think the picture is painted that it is a really tough, really rough city to grow up in. But from where you were sitting, where you grew up, was it as bad as that?
No, it wasn't. For me, it was like a playground. It was like the whole city was my playground because I had people.
Funny you say that.
Well, because I grew up in a family that was big. Yeah. I had uncles. I had a ton of uncles. Yeah. I had cousins. I had to come from this big family, and so like imagine having like 40 people all within 10 years, all the way down to your same age. Yeah. Right now. Yeah. So as soon as you step out, this cousin, that cousin, this auntie, that uncle, this trip, this whatever it is, and so Cleveland for me, that's how I grew up. Mm-hmm. But I did see some things happen in the city. I'm not from like the projects or nothing like that. So I didn't. We did all right. We lived in the suburbs, and I went to summer camp. I went to art school, that kind of stuff. So.
And my dad, even being from he wasn't from the Westwood area. He was from more the what is that, like that right there in Miles and not Bedford.
That's Garfield.
Garfield, excuse me. Yeah. Being from like the Garfield area. Still not hood. But
he started in the projects.
He started in the projects.
Yeah. And he used to take me to the projects. Like it just, in hindsight, man, honestly, your dad, and I was trying to tell him that, but he doesn't like to play nostalgia or warm and fuzzy. But we are at an age where reflection is a major part of the day.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Sitting back like, wow, man, dang. Yeah. I remember when, but yeah, he was,
He'd be like, look at my Corvette.
Yeah. But that part of stuff, like we go way back. Yeah. Like I used to be with him like on Friday night after high school, like I get out of school, catch the bus and go to his house. And then we would go on these adventures, man. Like, so I was 15, 16, and I was already kind of living the life of a young adult.
Yeah. Hey, let me stop you right quick, and then go back to that story. Again, like when we started this, I said that my dad's gonna tell his story. He may come on here at some point. We'll talk about his story, but he wants his story extended to the world in a particular way. Completely understandable.
Yes.
I'm not gonna step on those toes, but what I will tell everyone. You don't know Kenny Porter, so I got Spence here to try to give you a really good understanding of who Kenny Porter was as a young man. That way you can understand Kenny Porter now.
Yeah.
My dad went through had a tragic incident that happened to him as a child. I think my dad might have been 4 and his brother might have been 2. They were crossing the street. One thing led to another. You can finish the rest. My dad, practically his entire life, has been looking at other young men as they were his brothers or as they could be his brother. And interesting enough how that works is because my dad, I know he at some point got fixated on that, and it was like, okay, none of these young kids, none of these men are going to be my brothers, but if I can reach one
a little bit at least.
Yeah. And so my dad, even at 14 years old, he tells me that he would do his football practice and then he would go where the 10, the 8, 9-year-olds were, and he had a clipboard and he was coaching that team. That just was kind of where my dad's frame of mind was and where he was trapped emotionally because of his tragedy. And so when you fast forward and you hanging with a kid who's still in high school, you out of high school, you basically, my dad was looking at you like you could have been the brother that
he's bringing me along, man. He was bringing
you along.
Yeah. Because before that, so
because I want people to understand that it wasn't just my dad was like hanging around high school.
I wasn't hanging around
like that.
me. I was hanging around him. I was coming to find him.
And then even more the opposite, where my dad would always kept himself secluded, was because of his tragedy. Was like, I'm not gonna get close to anyone else. You know what I mean? So where you were in a situation where he wanted to be close to you was still a part of him. Like, nope. Never again.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you had something, I think, that was just a little different about you that kind of kept you in my dad's frame of mind and in the back of his mind. We're like, hey, let me see what Spencer's up to.
I can tell you what I had. It's a high tolerance for pain. That's what I had. Because your dad, I was going to tell the one story, and it left my head, but I would go find him on the weekend and we would drive around in the car. I had my license, and he would always make me drive.
He ain't had no license.
Right. So he would always make me drive.
He got a license, no car.
Yeah.
No car, no
usually
license.
Usually it's
car,
backwards.
no license.
Yeah, he would always make me drive. But here's the one I was thinking about. So like when I met your dad, wrestling was out. Like, Hulk Hogan always. So your dad would always play this game with all the guys in the neighborhood that were my age. Anybody that was my age. He'd be like, hey, man, can you wrestle? So, of course, the guy, he'd always wait, too. Your dad always waited, like, be me, him, and another guy. So your dad would be like, and he never talked to me about it, like, I'm going to do this or do that. It was all impromptu. But it happened every time. He'd be like, hey, can you wrestle? So the guy would be like, yeah, I can wrestle. He's like, wrestle him.
Yeah.
I was him.
Yeah.
And so your dad would step back and I would get up under the guy and I would put guys on the top of their head. But it was a couple. It was 2 that were legendary. Mm-hmm. And your dad after would be laughing so hard, the tears would be running down his face. It was a guy, he lived on the street and he hung around your dad, him and his brother. And your dad goes, he goes, the guy started getting big. He started working out because that was big too. Like everybody in Garfield had like weights in their basement and everybody worked out, like the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
So Rob had started working out. He's like, Rob, wrestle Spence. And so I wrestled Rob and I body slammed Rob, not backwards, but forward. I slammed him on his face. And your dad was like, he kept asking me, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. We were wrestling. I slammed him on his face. Yeah. But those kind of things is, the kind of stuff that your dad would do in hindsight for preparation to be ready for anything that would happen because things would happen from time to time and we'd have to, take care of ourselves.
My dad was always on edge.
Your dad lived on edge.
Lived on edge.
One time, I got suspended from school, and I couldn't run at the track meet. I wasn't suspended. I got mad at the coach, and I quit the team the day of the meet. And it was like an invitational. But St. Joe's was going to be there, St. Joe's High School. And the girl that I was seeing one of the kids from St. Joe's High School. So even though I wasn't running, I couldn't miss the meet because I wanted to see this guy, to size him up.
Yeah, of course.
So we're there. It's me, your dad, and one of my other homeboys. And it's the whole St. Joe's track team. And so some words got exchanged. So your dad starts talking to the shot putter on the team.
My dad out of school at this point, right?
Grown, amen. He starts talking to the kid, but your dad looked unassuming. He had this Jerry curl down here. He had on this trench coat. He had on hard bottoms. And it was probably like one of them days where it was in February or something like this. It was like 32 below. It was just like one of the coldest days of the year. And him and the kids start going back and forth. Well, anyways, after the meet, the kids, he like told your dad, like, man, I'm after the meet. So the meet was over. Your dad's like, Spence? I'm like, I got my hat on. I'm all prettied up. I'm laying back. I'm talking to some girls. He like, Spence? Like, you know what time it is? Like, come on. The track teams, the teams are leaving. He's like, come on. I'm like, what, man? He's like, dude said he wanted this work. He like, let me show him. I'm like, no. I'm at school, you know what I mean? I don't want no trouble.
Hold on. Like he clocking in though. Right. Like it's nothing. Spence, you know what time it is.
Then he went to Eric. He went to Eric. That was the other homeboy because he had on hard bottoms. He's like, Eric, take your shoes off. Eric's like, what? He's like, take your shoes off. Eric's like, no, I ain't taking off my shoes. Your dad said some choice words to Eric, but they never talked again after this day. Your dad proceeded to walk to the bus where the guys were getting on. Dude was out there, and he just started piecing him up. So I'm trying not to get into this thing. The whole team jumped on your dad. So I jumped in the pile. When I had on a coat, a hat, and everything, I came out of the pile with a wife beater hanging off one side. And that was how that night went. We didn't get arrested though. We didn't get arrested.
That's a good thing.
We didn't get in any like real trouble.
How did that one end? Because my dad, like, all of a sudden he's like your big brother or your uncle or something crazy like that.
Yeah, he's because what happened was, so the fight's over.
You suspended, so you're not supposed to be there.
I could have been there. I wasn't on the team.
Okay.
So my coach came up after the cop, because there was like two cops that were off duty that had their uniforms on that were like policing the meet. Yeah. So one of the cops had me like this, right? So your dad has already served up the guys. We did everything. I done hit some guys in the head with some of them ice balls. I done busted 2-3 guys' heads open. It's real drama, right?
How you in a real fight and you grab a snowball on your way into
because
Ohio.
You know how when they plow in the snow, we were in the parking lot. Yeah. So I was just like, like after the fight was over.
That's gonna be crispy. Man,
I cut some heads open, right? So the cop grabbed me. He's like, "You're going to jail. You're going to jail." Your dad walks in true fashion, like perfect time, and he busts through the gym doors, walking like he walks. He's like, "Hey, what's going on, officer?" He's like, "I'm taking this guy in. He's unruly. He's causing trouble." He's like, "Well," the officer's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm his guardian." He's like, "You're his guardian?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Take him out of here." And that's how I didn't go to jail.
Yeah.
Because I was cussing the cop out. I was saying all kinds of stuff to the cop. Yeah.
KP, make it happen on the fly.
Crazy.
He got in his car and drove away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just that's my dad, like on the edge, but still able to like really function.
Your dad was almost like, honestly, and I'm not exaggerating, he was almost like an enigma. Like nobody would believe the stuff that he has done. And listen, this is a family show. I'm just saying, your dad did whatever it took that he had to do to come up out of where he was.
Yeah.
And so I could just remember a dark time. He must have been 22 or 23. I must have been 19 or 20, whereas like childhood was over. Nobody's living with their parents anymore. Ain't no more fun because we got to make a living for ourselves. And your dad was like, he hadn't made the commitment to change his life. Because once he got with y'all and that y'all went out to Akron and all that, he made a whole turnaround. Mm-hmm. Like he went away for 10 years, like on sabbatical or something. And when I saw him again, he's like, "Oh, my sons are fighting," and I'm like, "What?" I was all mean mugging him. He's like, "Where you been? You missed the last 10 years." I'm like, "Bro, we parted on bad terms. Now all of a sudden, where have I been?" Right. He was coming to take my head off. He was looking for me. So, when I saw him again after that, it was incredible. It's just been incredible to watch him do what he has done.
A lesson my dad taught me, he always said, make sure you always honor your relationships. Any good people you have in your life, any friends, you may not talk to them for a long time, but just always make sure you keep the door open, you keep the lines of communication open, because you never know. I never forget that. He said, you'll never know when you're going to need them. And I've just really used that like a sponge, and that advice, and I've just wrung it and squeezed it out, because there's just people now that are affiliated with Fox. I need something. I'm like, who could I get? And somebody at Fox that normally they call us talent when we're at the shows and stuff like that. Talent, you don't really make friends with the camera guys and the sound people and so on and so. But I make friends with everybody because
you mingle.
Not because I'm like, okay, what can I use you for at some point? But you just never know. And somehow, some way, that advice always seems to just kind of show itself. Mm-hmm. What advice would you say my dad's giving you that shows itself time and time again?
Well, we were at an age where it wasn't advice. It was more or less watch what he does and do that thing. And, being a lone wolf, kind of being alone and making it happen. Also, at the same time, your dad, at a certain point, his integrity became with you guys. See, with you guys, once he had sons and he had to be a full-time dad, he left the other stuff alone, and his integrity was first and foremost to you guys and to his family. And that's when you say you talk to people and you develop banter, which leads to a form of rapport building and camaraderie. And people are going to come back to that. And that's just how it is. And so he showed me just how to like with kids, like with you guys, like no matter what, he was going to be there. He was going to be in your lives, and he was going to do his best. And, he told me all the stories about how y'all flew all over the country and just all of the things you guys did in the amateurs to get to this point. Because people would look now and be like, oh, Shawn's a fighter and they're doing this and they have that and have this. But they don't understand just the journey. Yeah. It's a lifelong journey to get to this point. Yeah. And for Kenny Porter. Yeah. Kenny Porter, I got some other names to go with that, There's Bam, there's Boo Boo, Jab, Kaleo, all the guys from the hood. And I don't know what those guys are doing. But for Kenny Porter to be doing what he's doing, that's saying something. Yeah. Because he could have been on another list. Yeah. But he missed that list. And trust me, he flirted with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what my dad said today when I was talking to him. He said, I said, I'm going to have Spence come in. We're going to talk about Cleveland. We're going to tell some stories. We're going to talk about you a little bit. He don't know. I said, well, Dad, you been there for what is it, about 40 years now? He don't like him. Nah, he was there. He saw some of it, but he don't know. I said, well, I think that he's got some stories to tell. He said, I had to separate myself from everyone in order for me to get where we are now. He said that actually included Spencer. He said, I know you see us now and we're cool. And yes, we've had good times along the way. He said, but there was a long stint where Spence wasn't in my life. And he said it was 100% my decision because I felt like it was what I needed to do in order for us to be where we are now. And that's just kind of who he's always been.
Yeah, I can identify with that because when we have children and we got kids with us, small kids, babies, toddlers, it's a different thing, man. And so he just always was committed to himself in that regard as far as taking care of himself, handling his business. So he already had that down to a science for himself. So when he got you guys, he incorporated, and he did make a separation. I mean, there was some events that happened that made the separation easier. You know, a good choice at that point for both of us. But it was like, it's one of those things when we get to a certain age, we have to go away from one another because we're building our own lives now. We're starting our own families now. When we come back together, you know, that's the culmination of many things.
Right.
And so he like, it was crazy just the relationship we have now because we both seasoned into it. But we had the biggest love-hate relationship. I was like his experiment, man. Yeah. He tried everything on me first. You know what I mean? And he told me about his brother.
Called him Showtime Spencer and everything.
He told me about his brother. But I didn't even, I mean, come on, who has something? Like now everything's, you know, there's a tragedy happening every 2 seconds now. Yeah. Back then, those things didn't happen. So when he told me, it went in one ear and out the other. It's not that I didn't believe him, but it didn't even register. And it wasn't until years later when we got back together and I tried to bring it up to him, and you know how he does. He's like, man, come on, man, get out of here, man. What's up? What we gonna do? You know? But he always got me prepared for being responsible and doing things and getting results, because that was his thing. Get results. Get the result. No, seriously, at a young age, bro. So what? All right, so you got this, or you doing that, or you ran this race, or you ran this time. But what is that? What's going to happen when the state meet comes, or what's going to happen when you have to race this guy? And I would just tune him out. I would just get away from him because I could. You see what I mean? So in hindsight, if I had been a little tougher and been able to take that part of it, it almost could have been different. But I wouldn't change anything just because from what I do today, the kind of business that I'm in, it's a tough business. And it was so I tear down buildings and houses, right? So I try to do it a certain way in the beginning where I had other people doing the work for me and my machines and stuff. So anyways, that didn't work out. So one day I had some houses the city told me, he says, yo, if you don't take these houses down, you're not going to be getting any more work. So I didn't have anybody. So this was probably 2 years ago, maybe. So I was driving to the site. I had never torn down a house myself. Now I could operate it, but tearing down a house is different, especially on a main street. You got neighbors. So I just remember crying, driving to the site, crying, just anger, tears. Yeah. But that's the Kenny Porter thing right there. That was okay. Yeah. You got these tears now. But you still here comes.
Now what are you gonna do?
Here comes. I'm coming to get you now, right? Yeah. and that was subconsciously him in my head, like, what you gonna do now? Like the one time he rents this big. He's moving. He rents this U-Haul truck, a big old 25-footer. So he has another guy driving the truck in the morning. So we load or we go get the truck to park it out. Some other guy's driving it. So we wake up the next day. I'm like, cool, let's go, let's move. So we put all the stuff in the truck. I'm like, all right, cool. Where's old boy? He's like, nah, he's not coming back. So we got that whole license thing again, right? Yeah. And some other stuff. Yeah. You know, he's like, you drive. I'm like, bro, I can't drive a stick. It was a stick. Yeah. Long story short, we're driving the truck. We get into one of the busiest sections.
Hold up. Don't do the long story short. Tell the story.
Well, I'm getting to the crescendo quick.
Nah, go all the way back.
I don't need to know what streets he was making turns on.
No, we don't need to know what streets he's doing. But my dad does not know how to operate My dad does not know how to drive a stick.
Right. I'm his experiment. He's using
My dad don't know how to drive a stick.
Neither do I.
But my dad ain't got no license. So that's his.
I got a license.
I can say this now because he ain't here. So he gonna see it. That's his cop out.
Right. That's his card.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
I don't have the license. You got to do it.
25 foot. You how old?
I must have been 18 or 19.
You telling an 18, 19-year-old you gotta drive this car. What you say, especially like, nah, how, you know?
Nah.
Or you knew you had no choice.
No, this is how I went down. Seriously. He's like, you gotta drive it. I was like, man, I ain't driving nothing. It's like, I'm out, man. He's like, you ain't going nowhere. It's just me and him.
Yeah.
Who's laughing? No laugh. No, because this the movie made, bro. No, this me and him on a Saturday morning. Like, you ain't going nowhere. I was like, dude, get out of my way. He's like, oh, you know you can't do nothing with me. We getting ready to do. He like, for real. I'm like, man. So he's like, get in the truck.
Parked over there? Okay. All right.
No, he's like, get in the truck and drive this motherfucker. I said, so am I gonna fight this guy or I'm gonna go kill myself in the truck? So I went with the truck.
Yeah.
So I get in the truck, we driving down the road. He's like, come on, man. Like, he's the whole ride. It's like, what you doing? Turn it, man. What? The whole ride, right? So finally, when we get to, I'm gonna tell you the street, because if you've been to Cleveland, this is a notoriously small, very congested, very busy on a Saturday, Lee and Harvard. We're right at the four-way intersection. Woo! So cars going, I'm in the truck probably, I got about 30 minutes in, period. So I start to clutch out. First time. Start it up, man, come on. Light changing. You got it. Ain't no cars coming. Clutch out again. So now I'm getting a little anxious.
Yeah.
So now
understandably
I'm
so.
sweaty. Well, that part, because I'm dealing with him, but now the machine, I'm thinking the machine is failing.
Yeah.
So finally he's like, man, if you don't drive this motherfucker right now, we gonna get out and we working right here. And I started it up and I started driving. I got it. I made it happen. And that's how, that was it, man. That was it.
And that's how Shawn became a two-time world champion.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Because the other side of the story was once you started, you got through that once you got through that right there, it kind of became a little easier.
Well, no, guess what kind of car that I've had for my whole life? Stick shifts. I drive nothing else but stick shifts.
But this is a part of the story that kills me. Again, my dad don't know how to drive it. Da, 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 da. My dad's in his ear, right here, on your neck. Come on, drive this thing. You clutch out. Come on, man. We gonna get out. We gonna work. But the minute you start driving it well, my dad become your biggest cheerleader.
That's what I'm talking about. I knew you could do it. You gotta have a man. You gotta believe in all this. And I don't want to hear it at this point. I'm actually zoned out, and I can't wait to get away from this guy. We gonna go, and I think we picked up somebody else. And we unloaded and we left, but it was those kind of things. But that moment right there, that one moment. Mm-hmm. Now we go to the excavator moment, and so while I'm in the excavator, I'm in the car alone, and I'm driving to the site, and the tears is because I'm afraid to tear down this house and this 50,000-pound machine. And this house was huge. It was an old house in a neighborhood, but it was a big, big old house. And if you know anything about tearing down houses and wrecking houses, is your height is your liability. So the stuff all the way up at the top is the stuff that can go out the furthest and hurt and kill and break property. And I didn't know how to get up there. You know, I didn't have a system in the machine to get up top so that I could get rid of that liability. But I was angry because I allowed myself, because of my fear, to not get into the machine. And I paid other guys to operate the machine and tear down the houses, but I handicapped myself. Mm-hmm. So that was my KP moment when I faced my fear and I did the thing that I was afraid of, and I got my result. So that was actually all of his work with me paying off. And I was 49. You know what I mean? I was a full grown man at that time.
Is it something people, and you kind of mentioned people have this outside perspective of your dad, and obviously I've known him for a while now, so I've kind of have both. I can see from the outside and the inside. Is it something that you see people are critical of your dad? Man, he's so hard on Shawn. Oh, you bossing Shawn around. Is it something where you can kind of see the method of the madness because you've lived it almost similar to what Shawn has at times?
I have, but I think with Shawn and Kenny, there was always a lot more on the line. Excuse me, on the line.
Yeah.
As opposed to he and I. But it was the same fire. It was the same drive. It was the same everything. But now it's his son, and they got this plan, and they've been working this plan. So who could be audacious enough to stick a toe in it? To you can't. You can't. No one can. I don't, opinions are great, because they don't really mean anything except to the people that are giving them.
Yeah.
But we talking about a lifetime of work. And so, like I said, we was in the gym. I tried to get a little bit, misty-eyed there when y'all was in the thing and y'all had y'all conversation. Because now Shawn is talking back. For years, Shawn wouldn't even say nothing. Just take it. And and what's crazy is this is the first time we ever had this conversation, because I never even went back around to tell Shawn anything because I know Kenny.
Yeah.
So I'll go back and I say, hey, man, don't worry about it, man. Keep your head. Then I got to talk to Kenny.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk to Kenny.
Talking to an angry KP is not fun for anybody.
Well, it's protection.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's Papa Bear.
Yeah.
Like I said, Shawn and Kenny been doing this thing when nobody else was around. I don't know if they was, eating noodles or bologna sandwiches. I don't know what they were doing, but it wasn't living in Vegas doing these things that they're doing now. It was a different look. And Shawn weathered, everything to weather to get to this point. And Kenny now is the most relaxed version of himself that I've ever seen. For whatever the reason. And Shawn is talking back, like in the conversations, it's like a tennis match now instead of,
just hitting the ball against the wall.
Dartboard,
yeah.
right? Like,
yeah.
It's a little bit, back and forth. So it's good to see. And I'm just hoping, to see more of the same.
The thing about it for me is I've always said that the training is the hard part. The actual fight's the easy part, and it takes, even saying that, I don't take anything from anybody that I've ever been in the ring with, but situation like the moving truck, that type of intensity that somebody has to endure day after day after day.
On a random Tuesday morning at 9:30.
Man, listen, I used to ask myself when I was a teenager, I would ask myself, like, did he wake up mad? How do you wake up mad? But that's just my dad.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to understand where that intensity was coming from. And now he's really just extended all of that to me. And again, like I love that story about the U-Haul, because I think it's a hilarious story, but then I find a lot
of your dad.
I find a lot of who my dad is in that story. And again, when you talk swim workouts, and if I come up in the middle of the pool before I get to the end of the pool, my dad's upset. Man, what you doing? You not driving this U-Haul truck. You don't know.
Back to Spence, not being able to get to
you don't know how it feels under this water right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that my dad forced you to go through that, it shows itself again at some point in life.
Yeah.
The fact that my dad, in the second round of me being in the pool and I'm coming up in the middle, it will show itself again at the end of camp when I'm able to go up and down for 5 or 6 rounds straight, and we're able to high five and know that we good going to the ring. My dad has a fire that is really natural. And again, we can talk about what he's gone through that's placed that fire there. But again, like you said, the plan that my dad had.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have plans, but do you have all of the other intangibles that go into carrying out that plan? I think that my dad is one of those very few. He is the anomaly there where he has a plan. He has that A to that Z. He knows where to skip those letters to get to where he needs to go.
And to get you where you need to go.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I'm with him, I can't skip any more letters or any less letters.
He demands greatness.
I got to go the exact same route that he goes through that alphabet in order to get all the way through it. And you know what I mean? Being at the gym the other day, do you have any PTSD, like when you see my dad doing his work or you see us on TV or anything like that?
I do.
You got a lot, some PTSD?
Yeah, when he's talking to you,
yeah,
I feel away. I can't lie.
Yeah.
I don't like it that much.
You're back on Lee Harvard Road at the U-Haul.
I'm back at a 12-year-old guy or a 13 or 14-year-old guy, and him standing in front of me making me do something and me having two choices: do it or try to kill this guy. Yeah. And so in my mind, in my 13-year-old or 14-year-old mind, I pretty much thought I could probably kill anybody if I wanted to, because I thought I was that guy. But I meet a guy who's way over the top. And so it brought me back down to earth. So actually, yeah, watching him sometimes, I'm like, man, I wish he would just kind of, just maybe. But
it get results. You know what I'm saying?
That's not going to happen, right? Yeah. He's not going to change now.
No.
Yeah. He gets results.
He's too good at this. He's too established at who he is.
Yeah.
Seeing us now, are there any surprises
that Shawn talks back?
No, I mean, nature takes its course, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Youth gets stronger, age dwindles things. So his energy.
Whisper that part.
Kenny's energy has dwindled. Plus, he knows he's got a good guy in Shawn. Like Shawn, once Shawn started to do the speaking stuff and kind of had his own thing, like that's a sigh of relief for Kenny, because boxing was always the intro. It was never the outro. It was never, we're going to do this. I mean, he always said it, even when Shawn was young. He's like, man, we're not going to do this a long time. We're not going to be one of these dad-son guys. My son's getting in the ring and he's this age.
Yeah.
And, they're hitting him. He says, we're not going to do this. So when Shawn transitioned over to broadcasting, man, that was probably, he's probably just as proud of that as he is boxing, because that shows the balance.
Yeah.
And he's zany enough to he's gonna sit back and tell you, which it was the plan.
Yeah.
Because he was telling me in the beginning and I didn't want to hear it. Because he's like, yeah, I was sending Shawn over here to this broadcast school. I don't know, where'd you go, Akron U or wherever?
No, I went to a camp one time, and then you went to Cleveland. What is it?
Yeah, Ohio Media School.
Ohio Media School. I was gonna say Ohio School of Broadcasting.
Cleveland Center for Broadcasting.
Ohio School of Broadcasting.
Yeah.
And we went and did a walkthrough there and everything. Yeah, I was gonna go to that school, and then boxing brought us out here to Cali, and then we were like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to do that. But that's been the plan the whole time.
Right.
And you
I was gonna say, even from a general perspective, we talked about not everybody is built for that.
Yeah.
Like Spence was saying, there's times where you're like, man, this is a lot. How many fighters have we seen your dad over the years where it's like, hey, this is a new fighter I'm gonna work with, and 2 weeks later I'm like, what happened to that guy? He's like, oh yeah, he didn't really stick around because not everybody's built to.
Well, no, that's the plan though.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
The plan is to crush out and destroy.
Because if they can deal with it.
If you can't get by him, how you gonna get by that guy in the opposite corner?
100%.
That's his thought.
Yeah.
And but what he doesn't understand is he creates animals. Like because you're gonna, everything you can't do and say to him, you're gonna do and say to this next guy. You know what I mean? And like you say, he gets the results and it is effective, but there's love behind it.
Absolutely.
He's not like, some abusive tyrant who's over the top crazy.
Yeah.
He's a lovable guy.
Yeah.
It's just he's on the line, and it takes a very strong fortitude to make it through.
Or
He's,
Hendry,
like Shawn is
or
saying,
Hendry not knowing too much English. I think that benefits Hendry.
but still, I don't know any one of the fighters that sticks. You guys know. Shawn's gonna know. You're gonna know.
Yeah,
they're tough people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, not just in the ring, out of the ring, he's gonna make sure that they're tough.
Yeah. Hendry not understanding English. He's like,
Yeah.
But once he starts to get it, he's like, man, he's been yelling at me like this the whole time. But yeah, no, you're 100% right. You go through that fire, I think you're pretty set on what you know you need to do going forward.
Was my dad the kind of guy that even like if he never had myself, my brother Kenny, and then Neek, eventually all that kind of stuff, was my dad the kind of guy that you would if he didn't have us, would you still expect him to be doing what he's doing now?
Yeah, and I would expect him to,
or like really successful at something.
I'm gonna tell you something else your dad and I have in common, and I think a lot of people, this is conceived as a negative personality trait, but we're opportunists. We look for opportunities. We have a goal in mind of what the opportunities are, and we position ourselves to get close to the opportunity. And when the opportunity presents itself, we seize the opportunity. So if you look at your dad asked me one day to take him to Akron for something. He never left Akron. I used to go back and forth flat out. I came back to Akron one day about a month later.
Got a whole house.
Yeah.
Take me for something.
I came back to Akron one day just to hang out. And I'm like, whose stuff is this? They're like, oh, that's my man's stuff. I'm like, my man who? Like the guy that came with you. I'm like, why is his stuff here? He's like, he never left. Then he moved. And that was the thing. That was kind of, he used that distance to kind of set up his shop, but that was it. And then he from that became athletics and boxing and all of that, because he was flirting with it in Cleveland, but I think there might have been enough relationships and distractions that would have maybe taken him away from it, so that when he isolated and got out, it was real simple.
He was ready to go.
It was real simple, but he has done that, and I'm the same way. I'm the same way in what I do. So I find out, I get the information, I get close to the situation, I do what I need to do, and then when the opportunity comes, you take over. You get in, and then it never gets you out.
Here's a story a lot of people don't know. My very first tournament, I was 8 years old, Kenny's 9. We went to Dayton, Ohio for...
I didn't know where Dayton was for most of my life, by the way.
For the Silver Gloves. What would you say? South...
It's towards Cincinnati, about an hour from Cincinnati. Southwest, yeah.
We were getting ready for the tournament, training, all that kind of stuff. And 8, 9 years old, my dad, I don't know how old he is at that point, but we didn't have a vehicle to get to Dayton in.
Wow.
And so my dad, we got in a Greyhound. Wow. Took a Greyhound to Dayton, Ohio, just for a weekend tournament. Friday, check-in Friday, fight Saturday, come on, whatever. Right. But that's how much it meant to my dad. It meant that much to my dad. But again, remember who he is. He says, this is the opportunity. How can I seize this opportunity? This is all I got. This is all I can do. Boom. This is what we're gonna do.
I thought it was gonna be a bike ride. I thought you were gonna be like, we jumped on those.
I'll never forget because I'll never forget because even at a young age, I think I had an understanding of security or enough understanding of security to know that I wasn't in my own car. I didn't know we didn't know where we were gonna stay when we got there. He figured that out, and then I remember going there. It was like, okay, we got to do this to get home. And if you don't know, a Greyhound is like sometimes you got to
different stops,
transfer buses and different stops and all that kind of stuff. But with an 8 and a 9-year-old, understanding what his plan was, what he wanted for his children, he says, I'm not going to let anything stop me. And this is the winter time too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So the way I look at that, man, I say, you know what? There's a lot of adversity there for a man with kids. More adversity there for the kids ourselves. You could be in danger in our lives because we're on a city bus. You could be in danger a lot because it's the winter time. Like there's so many things that need to happen. But the only thing my dad knew was I'm gonna keep these kids safe. They're gonna have their first tournament. Hopefully we win, and it ain't stopping here. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you look up years later and it's like now we flying everywhere. You know what I mean? I think that my dad always knew, he always had that plan, what he was gonna do. And I got a good feeling that when he basically exiled and went to Akron and he knew that I need to get away from these people, I need to get away from these situations in order to better my life, in order to be in my children's life and so on and so forth. Of course, the boxing wasn't there when we were babies, but eventually the boxing became what it was. But just saying all that to say that I got a really good feeling that even though he exiled himself from everyone and everything, you never left his mind. I don't think you ever left his heart. And I think that a part of his plan was to eventually see you and not only say, look what I did, but you know, what did you do and what can I do to help you now?
Yeah. Yeah. He, you know, what's so crazy is he talks, you know, we talk, man, but we talk, you know, we catch up and then we'll laugh. And I was talking to my wife and my cousin last night, and I'm not going to say it on while we're taping, but I'm going to say it to you guys when we're done, and I'm going to say it to him when I see him. But we get a sound bite that we always had, because he had like all these sayings he would say
Okay.
all the time. And, you know, he had a whole bunch of them. And so we bring them back up and stuff. But when we saw each other, he actually saw me at Tower City. So he came up behind me and was like, Spencer Robinzine. I already knew who it was. I turned around. I'm like, what's up, man? Like I didn't want to see him.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, how you doing? He was a little bit more mild-mannered. And he's like, as he tells me, you missed everything. And I'm like, I didn't miss anything. What's up? He's like, well, you know, the boys are fighting and they're doing this and doing that. He's like, I tell you what. He says, Junie's coming out. We're having a fight. I think y'all had some show in Akron.
Okay.
Probably
We
10
met up.
years.
Yeah, we met up, came out. You knocked the guy out. Kenny outpointed this guy. And that was kind of like my reintroduction to you guys, because y'all hadn't seen me since y'all was babies. And he just transmits things. He doesn't use the words. It's just, if you know him,
It's a fact.
you know what he's doing when he's doing it or why he's doing it. So when he was standing back looking down his nose at me and he was saying what he was saying, he was actually kind of scolding me for the way that we separated, but he never brought it up. He let it be dead. And when he re-invited me back in, I took the invite, because even though we had our thing, it was like we were closer than anybody. And once we get older, closeness is closeness. I don't care if it's adversarial or not. If this is the guy that is always with you,
That's your guy.
that's your guy. I mean, there's no escaping that. And so that's how it was, and that's how it is. You know, I came here and I waited to text him, because I knew once I texted him, if he was around, he's like, all right, you come in here, you doing this. Like, as soon as I texted him, I'm coming to the gym. I'm not leaving the day that my wife and I and my baby, we got to leave. I'm leaving the next day, because I'm coming to the press conference. Matter of fact, I'm coming to the Wilder fight. And so this is what he's telling me in the text message. And I'm telling my wife, I'm like, how am I going to
Sorry. How much of a choice
get out of all of this?
Yeah.
And so he's mellowed out, because before he would have, man, listen, me and him, he would have stood outside, go in there and tell her. That's what he would have did. He's like, I'm going to stand out here. You're going to go in there and tell your wife.
And I'm going to listen.
That's right. And if you need, come back out. If y'all, you know, but he's not going to take it to that extent. But that's how he shows, that's how he expresses his love, you know, because looking back, Junie, that was the only other guy.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
We were his two friends. And that, you know, other than that, I mean, and so like now, you know, I'm actually, you know, kind of checking on him and stuff, like, see, make sure this dude all right and he okay, because, you know, he always somewhere in the world being, you know, Kenny Porter. And the last thing I want to say about it is he was a leader, but he led himself. Like he wasn't trying to lead no other guys. And so I'm kind of, been a leader and I've led other guys, but I've always had soundboards and people to bounce stuff off of. So that's why I look at him and be like, damn, how was he able to make those clear-cut choices
on his own?
And that right there, that's a brain, man.
Yeah.
That's like, and I ain't gassing him or bigging him. I actually have to give him credit because even at the age now, when things are laid out in front of me and I'm fatigued and I got a wife and I got 5 kids and I got a beer I could drink, I got all these options and I have to make a choice. I got to take a nap. I got to watch
Right.
E.T. in the morning. I got to do all of this stuff to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to roll it out. He was doing this 30 years ago by himself as a 21, 22-year-old guy with kids. And so I give him credit for that, man. And I think that hopefully as he works with other fighters and as he stays in this game and he increases his staff of his conditioning guys and his coaches and different stuff like that, as he gets more pieces that stick, that becomes a part of really what it is. Because if you look at any other old great ones, that's how they were. They raised those guys.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Lewis, or was Emmanuel
Stewart.
He raised those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of those great coaches, they raised those guys, and that's how Kenny is. Kenny, he raises guys, and he is. It goes back to his situation, and he don't wear it around. But that for me was what popped in my head. It was like, bro, how in the hell? Like, I was thinking about so many other things at that age.
Yeah.
He was already planning and making a plan. And so to see his plan culminate to get to this point it's incredible to see, man. And it's impressive.
Well, listen, Spence, we appreciate you for your time, of course. Blessing the podcast. Trying to let people know that what you see on the surface may not always be what's there. This is Motivational Monday, so rewind it. I mean, we had a lot of fun with you today, but if you rewind and pick up on some of them nuggets, some of the things that my dad can really offer, he'll be on here eventually, but I wanted the extension of him being yourself today to really just kind of extend who he is to people who may get him, may have him misunderstood. And not that, people, I'm sure there's people out there that really enjoy my dad, like his coaches and all that.
I still wouldn't try to check him. Like we said, he softened up, but I still wouldn't step to him.
Yeah, but whatever the case may be. One more thing. You got one more crazy story for us?
I do. All right, so I'll end this with the craziest, one of the craziest ones of all. So he had this girlfriend, and he would get the keys from her on the late night, but he'd have me waiting in the wings. So he'd be like, go in the room. And then, I'm going to get the keys. So I'd be in the room and he'd come to the door. Come on. We get in their car, drive around Cleveland. So one night we're driving by a bar and he's like, oh, yo, those guys, it's a gay bar. So I'm like, oh yeah? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool. He said, drive by. So we drive by. So he leans out of the window and he yells out a term to the gay guys that they didn't like.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Appreciate that.
They didn't like it. But we young guys, we not expecting what's getting ready to happen. So we stop at a light. It was 3 or 4 of them. They start running like full on gay guys though, dude. I mean, like Damon Wayans and that other dude dressed up like that outside of gay, straight up.
Living color.
Straight up. Men on film.
Men on film.
Yeah, snapping, circling guys, right?
Yeah.
They running up to the whip. I'm driving. He's like, hey man, they chasing the car. He's like, take off. So I run the light. He's like, bend this corner. I bend the corner. We bend the corner. They run around the corner. They start shooting at us, man. Good thing he had his thing He returned. He kicked the door open like Starsky and Hutchins. Bow, bow, bow. We had to return fire, man. They were shooting at us.
Wow.
Yes, me and him, random, just riding through the neighborhood. So
And he was always the one instigating something, making something happen.
making it happen, baby, making it happen. Yeah. So that was one of the crazier stories.
Yeah.
But we always had we always had a good time, man, and we always was together. It was just me and him, man. We always I can't tell a lot of the other stuff because your dad was different, bro. He was different. We used to always. Here's another one. He went and got something to eat one night. It was a Friday night. He's like, "Come on by." I went by his house. He says, "You hungry?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, let's go over to this corned beef place." And we walked to the corned beef place. So he says, "I don't want to walk the long way. Let's take the shortcut." So we taking the shortcut. He falls down a ravine. He was in front of me. He's like, "Come this." Oh! So he falls down the ravine.
Hold on.
Where the hell were you guys going to get a corned beef sandwich at?
Through the hood, but it was like a church that had an old cemetery where they buried the nuns and stuff next to the church, and it had a ravine next to it. So he fell down the ravine. So he falls down the ravine. I'm cracking up. I'm at the top of the ravine. I'm cracking up. So I went the long way, came down, and met him. When I get down, he takes off running. I'm like, "Man, you all right?" He's like, "Man, shut up." And he took off running. So I'm like, I'm not going to chase him. So I get back to his apartment. I get in, he's cleaning up. You know, he's all deliberate. He's making his face. He's like, "Yeah, man, I fell down. I think I hurt my knee. You know, my knee, man." Anyways, I'm like, "All right, cool." I'm like, "You bought that food, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I bought that food." I said, "Well, what's up, man? You said you got 2 sandwiches." He's like, "Remember when I fell?" He's like, "Your sandwich fell too." He didn't give me a sandwich, man. I starved.
Yeah, I was saying, you worked up the hunger falling in the ravine.
That's right, brother. He's like, "You ain't getting none."
What were we arguing about there? Was it a corned beef place we were disagreeing about, by the way? Yeah. I said slime was number 1.
He said you ain't getting none.
I didn't get any.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said you ain't getting none. Yeah, you laughed. Well, it's funny now.
Yeah.
You ain't getting no sandwich. You ain't laughing right now. That's the kind of, and I wanted to kill this guy right there. At that point. Yeah, I was probably about 6.
A little too hungry to actually do it though.
I'm gonna go just a little bit longer. You cause my dad has told me some things about. Did you used to do stand up?
I did. I lived in LA and I did stand up for a little while.
Let me tell you real quick. The Spencer Robinson that my dad knew and knew growing up and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, Spencer could have did stand up. He could have made it big. But he ain't take it serious. He didn't do what he needed to do. I heard all that as a kid. So, you know what I mean? Like I said, like he never stopped caring about you.
Yeah.
And it was still, you know, a lot that he wanted to give you that he even probably held himself back from giving you.
Right.
Because he was like, if I give it to him, then what am I going to give my kids?
That's right.
You know
That's
what I mean?
right. And you know what? I can appreciate that because that's true, man. I mean, we burn up energy a lot of times, not understanding the extent of the energy. We do, especially when we're younger. And maybe he knew that. And I'm sure he did because you get kids, bro. You got to figure out what they're going to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I'm going to eat, but what are they going to eat? You know what I mean? So, but the stand-up thing, what happened with me and stand-up is I realized that I didn't have what it takes, bro. I mean, not to the extent that I couldn't do it, but that part of entertainment that becomes more the entertainment than the individual, I didn't have that. And I also had enough inside of my brain that I wanted to be the guy that wrote the check. I didn't want to get the check written for me.
Yeah.
And so, like right now, I'm left-handed, but I'm probably written more checks than, I don't look like it, but I've written more checks than most people get to my people that work with me and work for me and things that I've done. And so I wanted to have more control over the information and the process as opposed to just, you know, being
An employee.
worker be
Yeah.
the guy. Okay, lights, camera, your turn. Go, get him. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all right. What about the guys behind Mr. X, the guy behind the curtain?
Yeah.
That's who I wanted to know about, and that's who I wanted to become. And really, the parallel with Kenny and I is he was able to become his guy, and I was able to become my guy. Because a proud moment for me and him was one day we weren't shooting the breeze. He's like, "What do you do, man?" Finally, and I'm like, "What?" Because, it's all about Shawn. It's all about fighting. It's all about his fighters and stuff. And I don't sweat it. And then we might talk a little Pacquiao, a little Mayweather back when that was happening. So he's like, "What do you do?" And I kind of told him what I did. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You do that?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, that's impressive." I'm like, "Huh? You're impressed by something I'm doing?" He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Yeah." Well, he's like, "How did you get into it?" I was like, "Well, we talk about that opportunist." I'm like, "Well, I work for the bank, and the bank asked me to tear a house down in Cincinnati, but I live in Cleveland. So you told me about getting on the bus and a Greyhound to go to Dayton, and Kenny and I weren't talking. I mean, we were back together, but you guys were off doing your thing and kind of out here, and I was doing my thing. But the point is like when the bank said, "Can you do it?" I was like, "Yeah." So when I bid and I won, now I got to figure out the details. How am I going to do it?
Yeah.
And I just happened to be lucky and blessed enough. I met a guy who was doing it, and he looked like me. And he was a little younger, but he was not only looked like me, he thought like me, because when he met me, he's like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Man, I want to transition," because I worked for the bank. I did what's called property preservation. I took care of foreclosed houses all over that part of the country. That was the thing. I made up my mind I was going to go wherever the money was.
Yeah.
Well, he says, "Anything you need to know, I'll tell you." And I was kind of like, whatever. But he did. He taught me and told me, and I was able to buy a machine. Then I bought another machine. Then I bought a dump truck. Then I got a warehouse. Then I got, and then it happened. And then when I looked up, I was that guy. I was a results guy. And, that's the same thing Kenny would tell you is what I tell my kids. Like, bro, anything besides a result is an excuse. There's no reason, there's only excuses. And there's reasons after the result. Okay, the reason it took so long or the reason it looked so different is because these were the challenges. Yeah. Without the result, it's just hot air. Yeah. And so that's what I teach my kids and show my kids. And I also teach them, the importance of understanding how to work together.
Promise y'all, this is the last story. We're going to end on this one.
Okay.
We ending on this, so right. I was like, I'm going to say, and that's Kenny Porter. We're going to start the music, and we done. My dad, a little older than you, my dad was working somewhere at
oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's the story we're going to end on, and then we done. Because again, you get a dose of Kenny Porter, but you also get, like, my dad was really trying to help. Like,
he did help me. He did help me. So I had graduated high school. I was kind of bumming around. I wasn't doing anything. And he called me one day. He's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Chilling." What you mean, what's up? I'm done with school. I'm chilling. He's like, "Man, what's up? What you gonna do?" I'm like, "Man, I'm chilling." He's like, "You need a job?" I said, "Man, I need a job." He's like, "All right, come out here. I'm gonna get you a job." So I go out to this nursing home. I'm 18, bro. I don't know what a nursing home is. I don't know what these people, have dementia and none of this. Yeah. I'm taking all this stuff at face value. So I go in the nursing home. So they hire me that day. That's how bad they needed help. I'm thinking I'm going to fill out. My plan was fill out the application. And
relax.
Dip.
Yeah.
No, not relax. Fill out the application. Kind of like, yeah, all right, y'all going to call me? Never come back, right? Fill out the application, like, could you come in the office? It's like, yeah. He's like, "You need a job?" I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I need a job. He's like, "Well, we need you to start right now." I'm like, all right, man. So I start right now. I had like 10 people, 12 people. I had to wake them up. This is a guy walking in off the street. I had to wake them up. I had to change all of their diapers. I had to feed them. I had to do all this stuff. So Kenny wasn't on the floor with me. He was in another part of the building. So I couldn't even, get an assist from him.
Yeah.
So one day, there was...
How long you been there at this point, you think? You make it some months or?
I made it probably 2 paychecks, which would have been 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second paycheck was just that 2 or 3 days until I found out which bus was coming at lunch and I was out, bro.
Yeah.
But this particular day, Kenny thought this would be funny. I didn't, but he did. He goes, he comes down on the floor, showing off because he's got his stuff down to a science where he is. So he comes down to my floor. He's like, "What's up, man? What's up? What you doing?" I was like, "Yo, man, help me out, man." I was beat because, you got to get all the people up and then you got to do it in a certain way. And then the nurse is coming, all this. So I was, of course, behind. I was all haywire. So Kenny walks up. He goes, "What's up?" I says, "Man, I got this one lady, man. I'm having problems with her. She was in this chair called, I think they called it a Jerry chair. It's just nothing but a recliner on wheels. So you can push the people around. But this lady needed to get on a bathroom.
Come closer.
Oh, this lady she needed to use the restroom. So I couldn't lift her. So I asked Kenny to come and help me lift her. So he comes, he's already laughing. He's laughing when he walks up. I'm sweating bullets because I want to do a good job and I'm holding myself accountable, but I can't do it. So he's like, "Oh man, you need help with her?" I'm like, "Yeah." So they knew each other. He's like, "Come on, Rosie," or whatever her name was. So he gets her in this bear hug and he lifts her up. Now he's lifting her up so that we can get her over to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It just starts shooting out of her back end, bro. So he's holding her. The door's closed. He starts chasing me around the room with the lady, shooting stuff out of her back end. And he's holding up this 200-something pound lady, laughing, running through the room. So he puts her where she needs to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "Look like you got a mess to clean up." And that was Kenny Porter.
Hold on.
Last day, that was it.
You got to tell a whole story.
That sounds like the whole story.
It ain't it. And we got to go. But that ain't it because you wanted to quit. And the fun Kenny Porter that was just doing all this and that's cool. But then Kenny Porter snapped.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a different story because at the end of that day or another day, we was like going to the house and I'm like, "Hey, bro, there's a wrap for me." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Nah, I ain't coming back." He's like, "After I put my name on the line for you, bro," he's like, "You ain't coming back?" He's like, "You coming back?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "Watch this." He's like, "We getting ready to go to the body." He said, "After we go to the body, I bet you coming back." I'm like, "Bro, if you put your hands on me, bro," because I was that kind of guy. Like, I was intimidated, but I was going to figure out a way to not let it happen because if it happened, then I'm going to have to pick up something to do something. And he knew that. So he was going to make sure that he finished me because he used to put us in all these holds and stuff, these submissions before submissions. And anyways, that was how that ended. And when I quit the job, I avoided him like the plague forever, for a few weeks, a month or so. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't want to let me quit, bro.
And I take that, I'm going to say this, but I take that into the ring with me, just to kind of bring this back to boxing. But I understand that there's an intimidation factor that I have. Whether that's you afraid. People, you don't understand that people may know that this dude is going to throw 70 punches around. Damn, I gotta get ready to throw at least 60 or 70 punches around. And I got to deal with him all night because one punch ain't going to get him out of there. That alone will create some mental fatigue and some physical fatigue once the fight starts going. But that's my thing. My thing is whatever I know that you don't like, you don't do well, or you're uncomfortable with, I go right for it. And I get that from my dad. So that's a dose of my dad today, y'all. Kenny Porter. He'll be here eventually. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate you, Spence, for coming through. Of course, Carson A. Merk.
Always.
God bless you guys. Hope y'all found some motivation in this. Rewind it. Watch it a couple of times. It's entertaining, but there's some messages and some nuggets in there too. So God bless you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. What's up? I'm Showtime Shawn Porter.
I'm Ant. Follow me on IG, Ant with 2 T's.
This is the Porter Way Podcast. This is Anthony Brenagh, and this is Carson Merk. Tell them what to do.
Hey, like, subscribe, comment, follow us on all social media platforms.
Subscribe.
I'm from Louisiana. I'll talk with a B. Let's do it. Let's do it again.
All right, just introduce yourself.
Okay.
And then tell them, and then you tell them what to do.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Porter Way Podcast.
You're already here.
Hey, this is our outro. We're gonna do it how we want to.
I'm Showtime Shawn Porter.
I'm Anthony Brenagh.
Carson A. Merk. Like, subscribe, comment.
This is the Porter Way.